Hey y'all, Shark Scrapper here. What do you say we do a classic computer teardown? This time we're going to go after a Dell. Not a Dell, but a Dell. Come on, let's dive in. All right, so we're going to dive into this Dimension 2400. I saw a tag on here. This was made in 2003, so this is 20 years old. Think about that, 20 years old. Man. All right, I'm going to start out getting the screws out of the back here. Now, if you're new to the E-Ways computer scrapping stuff, I'm going to go through the process that I use. This is a pretty classic, standard way to go about doing this. Everybody's going to have their own little nuances, but they kind of follow the same pattern. I like to take the screws out of the power supply first because it's right there. And you look back here, here's all your connection ports. So your motherboard is going to be here. So you want to open up this side. Sometimes it's not clear what side you're going to open up. With this older style Dell, there's a little lever here, and then you can pull that lid off. Set the lid aside. You might want it again to close things up. All right, now we look down inside of here. We've got the power supply, the fan. This is a cowling to move air over the CPU. We've got some slot cards. We've got a CD drive, floppy drive, hard drive. Ugh. And a lot of dust. We'll get that fan, we'll bust that fan out of there. My yard takes those as small motors. Your yard may or may not. Your yard may have a category for computer fan motors. You just cut the brackets, and my yard also doesn't mind if I leave the fins on. Again, you need to know how your yard is going to buy those. And then we get the wire off of there. Number 2 insulated copper wire from my yard. I'm also allowed to leave the ends on. A lot of yards want you to trim these ends off. Let's get these slot cards. So this is called a gold finger card or a slot card. For boardsort.com, there are a couple things you want to do to increase the value. Let me get them all out of here first, then we can talk about that. Now, for boardsort.com, maximum value for this board is to take off the bracket, any heat sinks or motors or big chunkiness. So, big useless chunkiness. So that's maximum value for boardsort.com. Cold finger card, no bracket, no heat sink, no motor, transformer. There's another one, max value. If you're relatively new to my channel, you will hear me talk about boardsort.com a lot. Oh, by the way, this is an electric screwdriver called the Kaiweets. I have a link for it down in my description below. I did a review on it. Very handy for taking off the thumb screws or the brackets. Just like that. We have to take this heat sink off. Oh, this can be a real nice, valuable card for board sort. For us, it's still a gold finger card or a slot card. But board sort's going to really get some good value out of this. And recognize that the average of all of the different types of gold finger cards that I send to board sort is why they pay me so much. It's why they're going to pay you so much too. Aluminum heatsink. Get that little bit of ferrous off of there. Sometimes these are brass. Sometimes they're brass colored. It's real easy to find out. Sometimes they're coated, so you don't know until you put a magnet on them. In this case, it's ferrous. All right, next for me, I like to get wire out of the way as much as I can. So for me, I like to get the power supply out of the way because there's a lot of wire associated with the power supply. And it just, by having that out, it helps me to see things. So we'll get this ribbon wire out. My yard lets me put the ribbon wire in with my number 2 insulated copper wire. Your yard may have a low grade or ribbon wire category. If you have to take the connector ends off, ribbon wire connector ends are nice because they have, let's see if some of them come out when I do this. No, of course not. But inside here are going to be some gold-plated pins. And we pull one out. Now it's very hard to see with that one because there isn't a lot of gold plating on it. But some of them, the gold plating is very pronounced. So that can go into gold connector ends, gold-plated connector ends for boardsort.com. It's a separate category. Or you can pull all those pins out and try to get the gold yourself. Or you can just throw it in with your insulated copper wire if your yard lets you. That's one of those things that really comes down to you, how much time you have, why are you doing it. You know, you might be a hobbyist and going after the gold is just something fun to do. So go for it, you know. For me, I need to pay attention to how much time I spend on this stuff. So I tend to just take the quick route and get it in and get it out. All right, now, there's our power supply. We'll deal with that a little bit later. Next up, the RAM. So here's the RAM, gold-fingered RAM. That's this is some of the highest quality board you're going to find. So a lot of good value there. $20+ a pound, depending upon when you see this video, most likely. So, gold RAM. All right, now we're going to get the heatsink off of the CPU. So we have a nice big chunky aluminum heatsink. My yard buys this as extruded aluminum. And then we have a gold pin CPU. Hopefully you can see the gold from the pins as I move that around. And that's a category on BoardSort. You just look that up. BoardSort has a number of different categories for CPUs, so you just have to go on their website and look it up. They're very transparent about what they pay and how they categorize things, so check it out. Oh, we got another screw here on this one. There we go. This is the hard drive bracket. Here's your hard drive. And we'll get this out of here. That's going to go in with shred. This hard drive is what's referred to as an IDE hard drive. It's got IDE pins. Let me show you. This is a SATA style connector. So you can see the difference in the pins. BoardSort will buy this board, but that's called a low grade or a SATA hard drive board. So if you take that off of the hard drive, you'll get a separate price for that, but it's not as good as the IDE pin boards. These are high grade or non-SATA hard drive boards. I remove these and sell these to BoardSort, and then I sell the hard drive to my local yard as a hard drive with no board. The SATA hard drives, I leave the board on, I sell it to my yard as a complete hard drive. I keep a drill already loaded with a Torx head for these. Makes it much easier for me, faster. There we go, there's the board. Take that little foam off. You can see why BoardSort would pay more for that. Look at all the components on there. And there's the hard drive without the board. More wire. The CD-ROMs are usually screwed in, and sometimes the screws come out easy and sometimes they don't. In this case, they do not want to come out easy at all, but we just take a little vice grip, get a hold of it, give it a little turn to loosen it up, and now it comes out real easy. And this one, I'm going to give it a tighten, and then, yeah, that's all that one needed. So sometimes if your screws don't want to play, push down real hard, turn it to tighten it clockwise. You might even feel a little click, and then you can turn it and it should come out then without too much difficulty. Little trick that works sometimes. Alrighty then, in order to get these, I'm pushing, but you can see this faceplate is in the way. So, you gotta pop that faceplate off of there. Now we should be able to push these CD drives out. If they don't want to come right out, then there might be screws on the other side of them as well that you have to take off the other side plate and go after. The floppy drive, I don't mess with this. The little CD, I don't mess with that. That's not worth it for me. But there are some people that do like to scrap those, go after all the little components. So and there's the little connector board, low grade, mid grade, depending upon your yard. I throw this in with my mid grades. And some shred. You know what, I tell you what, since we're doing a baseline discussion here, let me go ahead and show you. So you see this one, I took the screws out of this side. It also has screws on this side. There's the bracket for it. We'll set that aside. So this was your little, you know, your little tiny floppy disk kind of thing. What some people like to do is get the little motor out of there and that board, but I don't mess around with it because it just takes a lot of time and there's so little value in it that for me it's not worth going after. Now, if you're a hobbyist, then you know, you might want to go for it. So you can see that's not a whole lot of board there. And, you know, again, some people like to get everything they can. I'm not going to mess with this any more than that. This is just going in my shred pile now. All right, now we got to get that motherboard out of there. You see, I've got this nice long Phillips head. This is a #1 Phillips. You can get this from my Amazon store. The link for that is down in the description below as well. And it's a good size. We're getting down inside of here. Now with this particular board, we also have to get the screws that are holding in the heatsink bracket. There we go. That's plastic trash. And knock the screws off and the dust off. Oh my golly. All right, so here is our green motherboard. a small socket, a US quarter, will not fit inside of there. We need to take off the CMOS battery. I have a place where I keep these in the hopes that I'm going to find someone that will buy them to recycle them. So, gold cornered BGA. This is going to be some sort of, probably some sort of what they call a flip chip. Let's take a look. Yeah, so that's the ceramic chip there. Don't mess around with taking that off. You know, if you're, depending upon where you live and what you're doing, you might depopulate boards. There's not much gold value in this for the average hobby recycler. Some people really like to go after the gold cornered BGAs because there is some good gold there. You've got ICs and flat packs all scattered around. You have MLCCs on here that some people really like to go after. So there is some stuff here to depopulate if you're into that. However, if you're going to sell this to boardsort.com or you know, your local yard, then you don't want to be depopulating stuff unless you know they're okay with it. Boardsort.com, do not depopulate it because you're taking value away from the board, and they have been very good about trying to maximize the value that we get for the boards. So the result is you should not be depopulating anything from those boards. Now there are special circumstances for things like socket mounted ICs, and I discussed that in some of my other videos for you. So in this case, green motherboard is just going to go in my small socket green motherboard bin. Oh, also, just for to complete the discussion, I do not sell these boards to boardsort.com because once I get done paying for the shipping, which can be anywhere from 75 cents to $1 a pound for me, from where I'm located, it's not worth it for me. My local yard doesn't pay me as much as BoardSort pays, but once I deduct the shipping from the BoardSort, I'm actually making more by selling it to one of my local yards. Always do the math so you know how you're going to get the most money for what you're selling. Now we have an empty shell, and unfortunately these risers are not brass. Frequently these are going to be brass. In this case, they're not. We can put all the metal shred kind of stuff back in here. With this aluminum heatsink that we took off, my yard is happy if I just cut off the prongs like that. And then I can sell that as an aluminum heatsink or extruded aluminum. They don't mind if there's a little bit of that prong still inside there. These CDs, now with these older computers, these CD-ROMs could have some good boards. So we're going to get these opened up. Didn't want to play, did you? All right, we have ways of making you work. Sometimes I've seen this board take up the entire space of the CD-ROM. So this is about, you know, maybe about half of it, so that's fine. I like to look at this ribbon wire here. Sometimes that's gold plated. In this case, it's not. And then I look for this spindle to be brass. In this case, it is. So we pull that off for the brass. Now let's see what we have here. What do we have here? Again, we have somewhat decent sized board here. And let's see, is this wire gold this time? Yeah, very, very slight gold sheen to this. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. So I'll hang on to that. I keep saying that one of these days I'm going to go after that gold. I don't know when one of those days is going to happen, but those things are light. They don't take up a whole lot of space, so why not hang on to it? And we'll get this spindle again, because this one is also brass. Now, with the CD-ROMs, if you're a hobbyist and you're going after everything you can, then you want to know that there's 3 motors inside of here. 1, 2, 3. Get this out of the way. That one spins the disc. This one moves this arm back and forth. And this one opens and closes the drawer for the CD. So there's going to be 3 little motors in there to go after if you want to. And they all have similar kind of thing to go after them. Let's see if this comes out easy enough. I'll show you. I don't normally go after these, just not worth my time. So there's one of them. There's one of the motors. And this motor here is for driving this thing back and forth. That was that spindle that we took off. And those screws are really small, so they might just pop. Yeah. There's the motor right there. My yard doesn't mind if I leave it on the rest of that bracket for those. The third motor is going to be buried down on this board. I'm not going to spend any time digging that out, but if you want to, you just pop that board off. Well, kind of like that. Kind of like that. That's a low-grade board. See, that's just low-grade brittle board. And then there's your motor, but you got to go on the other side, and not worth it. Not worth it. Not worth it for me, anyway. All right. CD-ROM boards are a special category in boardsort.com, so, and they pay pretty well. That's it. There's a decent price for those. And then here's our 2 brass spindles. That's it for the shred that's going to be going back inside of this case, so we can close this up again. There we go. That'll go in with my empty shell stack. The power supply is another area of great debate over what's the best way to handle these. I use a tool that was recommended to me by my friend Ian over in the UK. The Man in the Shed, Ian Matthews, great channel, check him out. So I use this cable cutter and I cut off the wire. That's number 2 insulated copper wire. And then I sell this to my yard as a power supply with no wire. If you're curious as to why I sell them that way, there's a link here to take you to a video I did where Geek Shark and I, Geek Shark is my alter ego that does a lot of math. Yeah. We break down all of the potential ways to scrap these and the value you get versus the time that it takes you to scrap them. Kind of interesting stuff so that you can make an informed decision about how you want to go about doing your scrapping. And then there's going to be another video that YouTube thinks you want to see. And the round one in the middle is to take you to the place where you can subscribe so you don't miss a single episode of this awesome sharkiness. Take care, y'all. We'll see you on the next one.